Let's check out all of the problems, serious and not so serious, with Friday the 13th, 2009. Well, that didn't take long. So, some distressed camp counsellor is running through the forest. Well, she's not really running, is she? When suddenly a young-looking Pamela Voorhees jumps out. She's killed the rest of the counsellors for letting her boy Jason drown in Crystal Lake and hones in on her final victim, only to be caught off guard and beheaded by the young would-be victim. Pamela's body drops a locket that's later picked up by a mysterious boy. My money's on Kid Freddy Krueger. Intro over and we get to the second intro. At Crystal Lake, a bunch of campers arrive and start slapping ass. Two of the campers discuss looking for a field of weed. Is that the correct term? That's meant to be in the area. You see, they plan to steal a bunch and make money selling it.
I am relaxed. You wanna know why?
Why?
Because I wanna be fucking rich. You know what rich people do?
What?
They relax.
Dude, it's not fucking heroin. They all set up shop for the night and one of the campers comes back from a recon and says he's found some old cabins and begins to tell the others of the story of Camp Crystal Lake and Pamela Voorhees' murder spree. He also calls Jason a retard.
He was like deformed or retarded or something.
He goes on to say that Jason came back and saw his mum being beheaded and that the cops went looking for him. Okay, so like A, how would anybody know what Jason saw? And also B, Jason's presumed dead. That's the whole reason Pamela went to apeshit, right? So why would the cops be looking for him?
He said the cops came, they were looking for that Jason guy.
They then start to casually chat about drinking each other's piss. Yeah, it's that kind of movie. This gets a bit too much for these guys, I guess, and they go off for a midnight wander. Wade figures out that the field of weed... Did we settle on the term field of weed? Anyway, it's apparently nearby, and whilst he's relaying this info to his mate, this chick Amanda gets her tits out and literally starts to oil them up. It's pretty epic. GPS guy Wade goes off to find the weed. Dude, it's not fucking heroin. While he's pissing all over it, Jason appears to protect his stash. He attacks and kills Wade. At least I assume he does, but it's so dark that we can't see fuck all. But I am loving the nod to how Jason appears in Friday Part 2. Further away, the other couple stumble upon the spooky remnants of old Camp Crystal Lake and start to have a good nosy around. To be fair, so would I. They see a stash of counsellor whistles hanging from an old tangled net, unassuming items, or perhaps trophies from Pamela's killing spree. They then find the locket from the movie's opening.
Hey, it looks like you.
And upon further exploration, they also find Jason's bed. Like what? Why would Jason live at the camp? I thought he was just attending it like all the other kids. We cut back to the other couple who are cock-blocked by a creeping Jason. Richie goes out to investigate and stumbles upon Wade, who's so stoned he's bleeding out of his ears. Now that's some pretty strong shit. Maybe it is heroin after all. Amanda meanwhile tucks up nice and safe in her sleeping bag, but is soon attacked and dragged out of the tent by Jason. Richie hears her screams and hurries back to the camp to shockingly find Amanda hasn't quite got the hang of a hog roast. Richie desperately rushes towards her but is brutalised and snared in a bear trap. Fairly coincidental, but I guess Jason knew the direction Richie would be coming from, so what the hell. Richie tries in vain to free himself, whilst Amanda wins the award for best tasting barbecue team. Flip back to the other couple, Mike and Whitney, and they find a whole bunch of Jason-related paraphernalia. Jason's little trike, Jason's favourite door, Jason's bath. They even find Jason's glory hole where he likes to put his head. Suddenly the door slams and when Mike goes to look under, a pitchfork pierces up. Mike backs the fuck up and the fork begins stabbing towards him up through the floorboards. He's caught in the foot whilst Whitney sensibly takes refuge in Jason's bath. Mike gets skewered up by all sorts of metal instruments before Jason bursts through the floor and grabs him. It's all so dark. Again. Whitney legs it out of there with Jason in hot pursuit. She runs back to Camp Flaming's sleeping bag and snaps off a piece of crispy fried Amanda. Seriously, watch this.
Whitney, please! Help!
What the fuck? Poor old Richie's still trapped and Whitney goes to help, but Jason rushes the pair and cuts Richie down with an epic kill, a classic machete to the head. Jason then turns his attention to Whitney, but we cut to black before we see what happens to her. Well, so much for those guys. Nice work, Jason. Second intro over and we get to the third intro at a gas station. No wait, it's the main story this time. So all of that previous scene setting took up about a third of the movie's runtime. I get that you have to set things up somewhat, and I mean it was cool and all, but now we've got a whole new set of characters to not care about. Anyway, inside the station, Clay's looking for his missing sister. Yeah buddy, we just saw her back there in the second intro. This guy, who I'm calling Uber Chad, rudely cuts in and the two nearly come to blows. Honestly, I so wanted Clay to knock Chad the fuck out, but he gets away with being a dick for now. The new kids on the block hit the road to Crystal Lake and arrive at Uber Chad's family lake house. So Jason just wrecked the shit out of some campers, but the family Chad, who own a house and have been coming here for years, get off scot-free? Clay, meanwhile, carries on his search for his sister at an old country house. Is it just me, or are you also getting Texas Chainsaw vibes? Cool crossover idea aside, a cranky old woman answers the door and tells him that his sister is most likely dead. Now, this is probably the first red-hot lead he's had in weeks, but does he bother to chase it up? No, he just walks on by like a fucking goon. He then heads off to an old barn, and I know Friday Part 3 and 5 had barns too, but I'm still getting these Texas Chainsaw vibes. Clay startles the barn weirdo and asks about his sister. Barn weirdo hasn't seen her, so Clay leaves. Wow, what an amazingly pointless scene. Back at the lake house, holy shit, it's Clay again. Is he just going door to door visiting all of the movie's characters? Jenna invites him in because, you know, he got on with Chad so well. Duh. So obviously tensions rise, and this time I sort of find myself on Chad's side because Chad says,
"You can't stay here. No offense, but this is a private party. I don't know you."
Which is totally fair enough, but Clay just sort of stands his ground, which he's not really in a position to do. Dumbass Jenna then gets pissed at Chad. What the fuck did you think was going to happen? She then totally dumps Chad and then goes off with Clay. I mean, Chad's a Chad and all, but if you don't want to be with a guy, don't string him on. Back at the barn, the weirdo is interrupted from licking porno mags by a noise. Upon searching, he finds his old girlfriend. I shit you not.
Remember when you took my virginity?
Luckily, Jason spares us such horrific sights and attacks. Jason loses his cloth mask in the struggle before slicing Donnie's throat with the machete. Jason crouches to pick up his old rag, but something catches his eye, the fabled hockey mask. He puts it on and checks himself out in the mirror. Suits you, sir. Meanwhile, Clay and Jenna are out at the other side of the lake, and Clay finds Wade's broken GPS that leads them on the trail to the abandoned Camp Crystal Lake. And out on the lake itself, some of the Chadites take Chad's boat out for a naked water ski. Honestly, it's one of the greatest scenes ever filmed. Chelsea eventually bails though, and look what happens to Nolan the Chadite as he turns the boat around. I feel there's something a bit off about Jason using a bow and arrow, but he's used harpoons and shit before, so I'll let it fly. The captainless boat then dangerously careens towards Chelsea and then fucking runs her over. It's fucking epic. Now stunned with a serious head injury, she sees Jason on the shore. She hides under a jetty, but Jason stabs her in the head with his trusty machete. He then politely lifts her up so we can get one last look at her amazing tits. Why, thank you, sir. The sun sets and Jenna and Clay are searching the desolate remains of Camp Crystal Lake. Great survival instincts, Jenna. I mean, Clay could be a porno mag licking, mannequin boning degenerate. As they are searching, they spot a returning Jason Voorhees with Chelsea's body in tow. Jason spies Clay's bag, so flips on the floodlights and begins tearing the place apart. He soon gives up though, which doesn't really seem like our boy Jason. He picks up the body, Clay's bag, and then heads towards a cabin. Jenna and Clay meanwhile make the right call and leg it the fuck out of there to warn the others. But on the way out, Jenna triggers one of Jason's alarms, and in some tunnels underneath the campgrounds, we see that Clay's sister, Whitney, is still alive and being held prisoner by Jason? What the actual fuck? This is not Jason Voorhees' behaviour. Jason returns to the tunnels but hasn't heard the alarm since he was up top. He drops the bag near Whitney and walks off job with the body. So Whitney searches the bag and finds out that her brother Clay is out looking for her and finds the GPS. She grabs a piece of metal from inside and tries to open her chain locks. Damn, we're getting a lot of use out of this GPS prop, aren't we? Jason suddenly stops her, but is distracted by the locket of Pamela. You see, Jason is keeping her alive because she looks like his mother. Back at Ranch Chad, everyone's getting wasted and Chewie breaks Chad's dad's chair. That's fun to say. Chad's dad. Chad's dad. Chad's dad. Chewie goes to the shed to get some tools to fix the chair and gets in the only joke of the movie that isn't gross or obscene.
Poor people call this a house. Jesus Christ.
Meanwhile, Chad and Bree get hot and heavy upstairs.
Your tits are stupendous.
Amen, Chad. I mean, if there's one thing this movie's doing right. Clay and Jenna burst in to warn everyone of the incoming hockey mask threat and call the police. Back in the shed, Chewie's goofing around and breaks a light bulb with a hockey stick. Whilst attempting to clean up the mess, Jason appears from behind him. Chewie offers him the hockey stick to complete his outfit. Dumb joke. Jason slams him into a tool shed and turns Chewie's defense weapon, a screwdriver, against him and slowly pushes it into his throat, causing him to gargle blood. Jason then cuts the lights to the house and Chad is less than impressed when he sees his best mate again, fucking Clay. Lawrence cuts through the bickering and heads outside to find Chewie.
Chewie!
No, the Asian guy, not the Wookiee. And can I just say, I'm fucking well impressed that he thought about using a pan as a shield, but then he completely fucks up by dropping it and looking in the freezer for some reason. Suddenly Chewie's body falls down and Jason strikes. Lawrence puts up a great fight though, stabbing Jason and whacking him in the head before running outside. Jason, who's super pissed now, grabs an axe and hurls it through the air, landing straight in Lawrence's back. It's pretty badass. And in a scene that's actually quite emotional for the movie, Lawrence starts screaming out for help, but none of the fuckers inside go out to help. Jason then picks him up, spins him around, and then throws him on the floor with enough force to make the axe in his back burst through his chest. It's a pretty cool kill. The rest of the gang don't really come up with any plan and just sort of scatter around the house. Chad grabs a gun from upstairs and Bree goes looking for him but somehow ends up lost and in the bathroom, where Jason then grabs her from behind. Assumedly he got in through the open window and was careful enough not to knock any shit over. Jason then impales the horny Bree on, well, a set of horns that are hanging on the wall. The cops arrive in time for once, but the group's joy is short-lived when Jason jumps down from behind and impales the cop through the eye. Clay and Jenna run upstairs with Chad, and when Bree's body falls from the door, Chad freaks the fuck out and starts shooting up the place.
Bree's dead, he killed Bree!
Well, you could have just killed her if she was alive and hiding in there. The dwindling group head outside to escape, but Jason, the crafty bastard, has nicked all of the vehicle keys. Bree's body then comes crashing down, and Chad lets out the best scream ever before scattering into the woods. Chad's the first to get popped off when he comes across a pickup truck. He hesitates at first, not trusting who the driver might be, giving Jason enough time to catch up, stab him, and then launch him onto the pickup truck. The old git who's driving fast throttles it out of there with Chad in tow. See you later, Chad. You're a damn good Chad. Clay and Jenna follow Jason's trail from their previous encounter at the camp. I mean, why? Is now really the best time to play Scooby-Doo? They find the underground tunnels that lead to Clay's sister, Whitney. Shit, I totally forgot about her. Clay manages to free Whitney just before Jason bears down on them. In the twisting dark maze, they come up against a dead end, but manage to escape through a small crawl space. Well, except Jenna. Damn, the final girls in this movie fucking suck. The tunnel leads to a ladder, which in turn leads up to an overturned bus, but you'd never guess that it was a bus until you see the next scene where they escape through the door. Jason appears rather out of nowhere, but he does know the area, I guess, so I'll give him that one. He throws Clay to the floor, leaving Whitney trapped inside the bus. She surprise hits Jason, and then there's some sort of struggle, but again, I can't really tell exactly what's going on because it's so fucking dark. Whitney then somehow manages to escape up top to a revived Clay. They then run to the barn from earlier. They're really getting their money's worth out of this barn location too. Clay starts slowly moving nervously around the place, expecting Jason to jump out, but why would he? You left him behind in the bus, right? But then at the exact same time he relaxes, Jason busts through the window and grabs him. Well, yeah, you gave him time to catch up, didn't you? Clay struggles with Jason and puts up a really good fight. Jason eventually slams Clay into a wood chipper, turning it on. Shit, now I'm getting Evil Dead Rise vibes. Jason goes to feed Clay into the chipper when Whitney calls him out by name. Kinda like a shit version of Friday Parts 2 ending. With Jason stalled, Clay attaches a chained bear trap to Jason's back. Sort of reminds me of a chain chomp from Mario. He wraps the chain around Jason's throat and throws it into the chipper, causing Jason to be hoisted into the air. The beam holding the chain suddenly breaks, but Jason is just out of reach of his would-be victims and is slowly pulled into the chipper. Jason resists, however, but is finished off by his own machete. Like, I don't get why the chipper isn't pulling him in anymore, grinding him to shit. They then dump the body in Crystal Lake rather than leaving it as evidence for the police. Who the fuck do you think they're gonna blame for everyone's death? Yeah, good luck in court when you're babbling on about a hockey mask wearing monster, fucking idiots. But at least we get this cool underwater mask shot, right? On paper, Friday the 13th, 2009 looks like it's the perfect Friday movie. There's some great kills, decent kill count, and although it goes a bit OTT on the TITS, it's by no means the sleaziest entry of the series. The idea to merge elements from the first 4 movies seems pretty awesome, but unfortunately it fails to do anything better than the movies it's ripping off. So sort of like Evil Dead Rise, it's a decent enough horror on its own, but as a Friday the 13th entry, that Friday feeling just struggles to come through.
You got perfect nipple placement, baby.